Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our morning Chassidut here in Yerushalayim. Literally driving around and learning together Chassidut. So we're learning Pirkei Avot, Rechavia, the fourth chapter. We're going on to the next Mishna now, Mishna 5. Rabbi Yisroel bar Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yisroel, the son of Rabbi Yossi, says, Halomed Torah al menat lelamed, someone who learns Torah for the purpose of teaching, maspikin miyado, from above. Hashem helps him, lilmod, both to learn, ulelamed, and to teach. V'halomed al menat la'asot, and if someone teaches for the purpose of doing, knowing what to do, excuse me, please, maspikin biyado, Hashem helps him, both lilmod, to learn, ulelamed, and to teach, and lishmor, to guard, to keep the mitzvot, v'la'asot, and to do them properly, to observe them properly. Let's learn what the Bartanura, I believe yesterday was the yahrzeit of Rabbi Ovadia of Bartanura. So it's very, very special to learn what the Bartanura says. If someone learns Torah constantly for the sake of learning Torah, and he doesn't necessarily have in mind to utilize it for the benefit of helping people, even though a person should initially aspire to help people, to do kindness. Nevertheless, Hashem helps him to learn properly and to teach properly. And his thought is kept properly. Now, if someone learns not only for the benefit of him learning himself, it's a great thing to learn, just to learn Torah, lishma, for the sake of learning the Torah. But a person also has in mind the ultimate, to do, to help, to accomplish, not just for learning itself, then Hashem helps him to fulfill his machshava, to fulfill his thought. And he will merit both to learn and to teach and to also guard the Torah and do the mitzvot. We have two great teachers, authors of the Talmud, Abaye and Rabbi. Rabbi was the uncle and Abaye was the nephew. Unfortunately, Abaye's parents passed away when he was a child, and therefore Rabbi, his uncle, but he was a great tzaddik, a great scholar, Rabbi raised him. And Abaye, of course, became a great scholar himself and a big tzaddik. And so, actually, I think this is one of the reasons why he was called Abaye. It's almost like saying Abale, like father, because he didn't have a father, so Rabbi called him Abale. But Abaye is a similar type of expression. Abba is, of course, father. So in their family, there was unfortunately a very terrible genetic problem that they would pass away. I'm not sure if it was before the age of 18 or 20. And both Rabbi and Abaye, they wanted to have longevity. So Rabbi took upon himself to dedicate his life for learning of Torah, and Abaye took upon himself not only to learn the Torah, but also to do chesed, to do kind acts of kindness. Rabbi, that dedicated himself only for the quote unquote for learning of Torah, he lived until 40. He pretty much doubled the age. And Abaye lived till the age of 60. And so Torah extends a person's life, doing mitzvahs and kind. So our Mishna is teaching us that according to the thought of a person, that's how Hashem helps the person accomplish in the world. So it's not as if to say that if the person did not have in mind also to do mitzvot and acts of kindness, that we don't help them at all. No. Maspikin biyado. We do help them. It's just that Hashem helps the person according to their thoughts. Or, like the phrase goes, Hashem helps the person who helps themselves. So it's important that we have the right thoughts in mind, the right aspirations in mind, in order to accomplish the maximum that we're able to accomplish. Be'ezrat Hashem. Now let's move on to the second half of the Mishnah, Mishnah Hey. This is very interesting, this part, actually both parts of the Mishnah, because we are today on the second day of Sivan. And the second day of Sivan, we are in the final days of preparation for Shavuot, for the receiving of the Torah from Hashem. It's not only that Hashem gave us the Torah 3,334 years ago, but every year, this week, in other words, in the next 4 or 5 days, Shavuot, Motzai Shabbat, which is basically Sunday, we are going to receive the Torah anew. And everyone is welcome to join us at Chabad of Rechavia to receive the Torah, to hear the reading of the Torah. And it's going to be a very exciting event. So, in general, Pirkei Avot, the ethics of our father, discusses the Mesorah, the deliverance of the Torah from Moshe Rabbeinu, who received the Torah from Hashem, down the generations. And in general, we learn a lot of things about the Torah. And so, over here, this Mishnah obviously discusses a couple of important subjects with regards to learning the Torah. We just learned about how you're supposed to learn. You're supposed to have the right intentions, not only to learn the Torah, but also to know what mitzvahs to do and the chesed, the kindness to help other people. And now we're going to learn the second half of the Mishnah. Rabbi Tzadok says, Al tifrosh min hatzibur. Do not separate yourself from the public, from the congregation. This is a statement. These 4 words were also recited in chapter 2, Parak Bet, I believe, Mishnah Hey. The next statement he says is, V'al tas atzmecha ke'archei dayanin. Don't make yourself like those that organize the rules. Like a orach din is a lawyer. The altas. Also this statement we learned earlier. That was in Perak Aleph, Mishnah, I believe, Mishnah 7 or 8. Here we go. It's Mishnah 8. The exact same words. Al tas atzmecha korchei dayanin. Don't make yourself as those who organize their complaints and their opinions in front of the lawyers, because you're not allowed to reveal to one of the individuals that are doing this, that are involved in this case, and to tell him, do this, A, B, and C, in order to succeed in your mission, even though you know that he is correct. Another interpretation is that you should not make yourself like a big shot, like a big rabbi, like a big judge. A person should be humble and do their best to achieve the correct halachic ruling. And now we're moving towards the learning of Torah. This is where Rabbi Tzadok connects to the beginning of the Mishnah. V'al ta'aseha atara lehitgadel ba. Do not make the Torah a crown to become great. A person should not say, oh, I'm a great rabbi. I'm learning now that I should be the biggest rabbi in Israel. I should be And that's not why we learn. We learn Torah in order to learn Torah, lishma, not for any other purpose, not for any other gain. As we're going to see in a second, a different type of gain that a person may receive. Below, also you should not make your Torah kardum lachtachba. Literally means an axe to chop with. In other words, an axe brings you the medium. What's the axe is the medium? I meant to say the axe is the medium for the end goal. What is the end goal? The goal is that you should be able to have the piece of wood. So too, the Torah should not be used for business. That's one of the interpretations. That you should be able to earn a living through the Torah. Why did we learn Torah? It's very simple. For the sake of learning Torah, not for any other reason. We're going to soon see, hopefully, a little bit of a deeper interpretation into this, either today or tomorrow. But in the meantime, what are we learning? We're learning that the Torah should not be used as a medium for something else, whether to be called to have looks at themselves as being a very accomplished rabbi and Torah learner. We only learn the Torah just for the sake of learning Torah, and including also not for the purpose of other people, not for the purpose of making money and for any other purposes, just for the sake of learning Torah. The Hillel Homer, and this is what Hillel used to say, and this is also a quote from Perek Aleph from chapter 1. I believe it's Mishna Yud Gimel 13. Udi ishtamesh betaga chalaf. If someone uses, taga literally means a tag, the little line, in the Torah itself, in the Holy Scroll, you have these little tiny lines, they're called like crowns on top of some of the letters, tiny. So what it means is that if someone uses the Torah, utilizes it for his own benefit, so to speak, chalaf, God forbid he could die. In other words, what's the point? The point is we're not allowed to use the Torah for our own benefit, not spiritual and not materialistic. What do we learn from here? Rabbi Tzadok says, Kol hanen midivrei Torah, whoever has pleasure from the words of Torah, notel chayav min haolam. He takes his life from the world, unfortunately. Chas v'shalom. So in other words, it's a very serious matter for someone to use the Torah for their own benefit. When we learn Torah, it's supposed to be exclusively just for the sake of learning Torah. Now, when we say that we should not use the Torah as an axe to chop wood, for example, so you shouldn't use it as a malacha, as a work, as a job. Now, the Bartanura addresses an interesting subject. How about a teacher of children teaching them Torah? We learned in the Pirkei Avot that when you're 5 years old or in your 5th year, you start learning Chumash. In your 10th year, you start learning Mishna. And so on and so forth. You learn Talmud, more and more of the Torah. So we need someone to teach to teach the children. So the answer is that you're allowed to take money. It's because you're able to sort of differentiate between the actual Torah teaching and the quote-unquote babysitting. Watching them, they're kids. They need to be safe. So the payment is not for the Torah teaching, it's for being there with the children. Being there for them. Like, for example, you're not allowed to pay someone to do something on Shabbos. Even the person that comes to read the Torah by us. So what do you pay for? You pay for the preparation that he did before Shabbos. By the way, he's also reading the Torah on Shabbos. So it's a kind of excuse that is brought down in halacha how it is possible to pay. Same thing over here. We are paying them for the job. The question is, what's the focus? What's the main part of the job? So the main part of the job is the watching of the children. Also, a judge on the Beit Din, not allowed to take payment for the psak din, for the ruling. Only the reward that he needs to be doing something. So because he's not sitting bored, so you're giving him some kind of stipend. And then it says, then he finishes off by saying a similar point, another way of another excuse to try to give someone money is in order that he should help him on the side for other things. But it's almost like indirect. We're not paying him directly for the service of the Torah learning, because as it says quite clearly in the Mishna that we learned, that you're not allowed to benefit personally, spiritually, or materially speaking from the Torah learning. Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow we're going to learn a deeper interpretation into this Mishnah. So today we learned Pirkei Avot, Perek Daled, chapter 4, Mishnah Hey, the fifth Mishnah, and we learned the first lesson. Tomorrow will be lesson 2. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to all who came last night to the Tuesday night shir. Tomorrow morning, I look forward to learning with you, Bezrat Hashem, at 9:15 right here in Yerushalayim. All the best.